And welcome to The Knowing Show. I am your host, Christine Marie. I am so grateful to be here with you all this morning. The Knowing Show, for those of you who are new, we gather every morning at 9 a.m. Eastern, 6 a.m. Pacific, and we gather to discuss the human intelligence, the cultivation of the human being, especially in this AI-driven world where everyone is obsessed with artificial intelligence. We talk about what does it mean to cultivate the human intelligence. And the human intelligence is encompassing the intellectual intelligence, that which we've cultivated since pre-K, learning how to talk and write and learning math and history and English and science. And then we also cultivate the emotional intelligence. The emotional intelligence is defined as the ability to be aware of, understand, control, and convey one's own emotions, and the ability to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and with empathy. So it's us understanding ourselves and us being able to engage with others. And then the last two intelligences, spiritually and physically, those two are probably the least discussed intelligences in our culture today. Spiritual intelligence might very well happen on a Saturday or Sunday, whatever day is the holy day where you go and you reserve it for religious practice. But really this ability to cultivate our spirit and this pathway to God can be done at any moment, at any day. And then for the physical intelligence, we usually only cultivate our physique in the gym rather than understanding that our body keeps a score. Our body stores data and remembers what we've experienced in the past. This is akin to when we see somebody experience post-traumatic stress disorder, their bodies are throwing them back into the past. And with the way our bodies work and our hormone levels spiking, it is wild to examine the fact that our bodies actually can be self-soothed, and we ourselves can move it out of that same stress that it was brought into subconsciously. We can consciously self-soothe it and kind of bring it back to a place of peace. Y'all, we're not taught how to engage with our bodies, how to engage with our minds, our souls, our spirits. And so this is where we talk about that. We have guests in the afternoon, and sometimes I'll go live solo on the weekdays. So I'm really, really thrilled you're here. In the mornings, we read through A Course in Miracles, and we are going to just do a quick preview of some of the lessons leading up to today's lesson 133. And then we will dive into today's lesson. Lesson 121, forgiveness is the key to happiness. Lesson 122, forgiveness offers everything I want. Lesson 123, I thank my Father for his gifts to me. Lesson 124, let me remember I am one with God. Lesson 125, in quiet I receive God's word today. Lesson 126, all that I give is given to myself. Lesson 127, there is no love but God's. Lesson 128, the world I see holds nothing that I want. Lesson 129, beyond this world, there is a world I want. Lesson 130, it is impossible to see two worlds. Lesson 131, no one can fail who seeks to reach the truth. Lesson 132, I loose the world from all I thought it was. And today's lesson, 133, I will not value what is valueless. Sometimes in teaching, there is benefit, particularly after you have gone through what seems theoretical and far from what the student has already learned, to bring him back to practical concerns. This is what we will do today. We will not speak of lofty, world-encompassing ideas, but dwell instead on benefits to you. You do not ask too much of life, but far too little. When you let your mind be drawn to bodily concerns, to things you buy, to eminence as valued by the world, you seek or you ask for sorrow, not for happiness. This course does not attempt to take from you the little that you have. It does not try to substitute utopian ideas for satisfaction which the world contains. There is no satisfactions in this world. Today, we list the real criteria by which to test all things you think you want. Unless they meet these sound requirements, they are not worth desiring at all, for they can but replace what offers more. The laws that govern choice you cannot make, no more than you can make alternatives from which to choose. The choosing you can do, indeed you must, but it is wise to learn the laws you set in motion when you choose, and what alternatives you choose between. We have already stressed there are but two, however many there appear to be. The range is set, and this we cannot change. It would be most ungenerous to you to let alternatives be limitless, and thus delay your final choice until you had considered all of them in time, and not been brought so clearly to the place that where there is but one that choice that must be made. Another kindly and related law is that there is no compromise in what your choice must be, must bring. It cannot give you just a little, for there is no in between. Each choice you make brings everything to you or nothing. Therefore, if you learn the tests by which you can distinguish everything from nothing, you will make the better choice. First, if you choose a thing that will not last forever, what you choose is valueless. A temporary value is without all value. Time can never take away a value that is real. What fades and dies was never there, and makes no offering to him who chooses it. He is deceived by nothing in a form he thinks he likes. Wow. Next, if you choose to take a thing away from someone, you will have nothing left. This is because when you deny his right to everything, you have denied your own. You therefore will not recognize the things you really have, denying they are there. Who seeks to take away has been deceived by the illusion can offer gain. Yet loss must offer loss and nothing else. Your next consideration is the one on which all the others rest. Why is the choice you make of value to you? What attracts your mind to it? What purpose does it serve? Here is the easiest of all to be deceived. For what the ego wants, it fails to recognize. It does not even tell the truth as far or as it perceives it, for it needs to keep the halo upon which it uses to protect its goals from tarnish and from rust, that you may see how innocent it is. Yet it is camouflage, a thin veneer, which could deceive but those who are content to be deceived. Its goals are obvious to anyone who cares to look for them. Here is deception doubled. For the one who is deceived and will not perceive that he has merely failed to gain, he will believe that he has served the ego's hidden goals. Yet though he tries to keep its halo and clear within his vision, still must he perceive its tarnished edges and its rusted core. His ineffectual mistakes appear as sins to him because he looks upon the tarnish as his own, the rust a sign of deep unworthiness within himself. He who would still preserve the ego's goals and serve them as his own makes no mistakes, according to the dictates of his guide. This guidance teaches it is error to believe that sins are mistakes, but who would suffer for his sins if this were so? And so we come to the criterion for choice. This is the hardest to believe because its obviousness is overlaid with so many levels of obscurity. If you feel any guilt about your choice, you have allowed the ego's goals to come between the real alternatives. And thus you do not realize there are but two. The real alternative you think you choose seems fearful and too dangerous to be the nothingness it actually is. All things are valuable or valueless, worthy or not of being sought at all, entirely desirable or not worth the slightest effort to obtain. Choosing is easy because of simply this. Complexity is nothing but a smokescreen, which chooses the very simple fact that no decision can be difficult. What is the gain to you in learning this? It is far more than merely letting you make choices easily and without pain. Heaven itself is reached with empty hands and open minds, which come with nothing to find everything to claim as their own. We will attempt to reach this state today with self-deception laid aside and with an honest willingness to value but the truly valuable and the real. Our 2 extended practice periods of 15 minutes each begin with this. I will not value what is valueless, and only what has value do I seek, for only that do I desire to find. and then receive what waits for everyone who reaches unencumbered to the gate of heaven, which swings open as he comes. Should you begin to let yourself collect some needless burdens or believe you see some difficult decisions facing you, be quick to answer this simple thought: I will not value what is valueless, for what is valuable belongs to me. Y'all, I love today's lesson. I love it because it forces you and me, or rather asks, I guess I can't force us to do anything, but it asks us to create a standard, a checklist effectively by which we will then make a decision that leads to what is our choice in terms of how we identify value, how we deem and assign value on a person, place, or thing, on every choice. What is the checklist upon which I will look back and assess, will I make this choice or that? And y'all, this is so important. This is so important because so many of the choices we make in our lives, we don't do it with intention. We do it operating from usually our subconscious. We're not really aware. Again, going back to the definition of emotional intelligence, it's to be aware and then to understand, control, and convey our own emotions. And a lot of times we have emotions assigned towards a choice that we're not even aware of. So really, the decisions we're making, the actions we're taking, how we're guiding and living our lives, we're being guided by this operating system in our minds that lie beneath in the subconscious, and we're not even aware of what's happening. We're like wondering why we're experiencing the life that we are. We feel like we're victims, when in reality, we've been making the decisions that have gotten us to this place. I think one of the most important things you and I can do is move out of that victim mindset and realize that we have so much more control in our lives than we ever thought, which is exciting. To assume radical responsibility, to be asking these questions that she outlines here. She says these are the questions we should ask. Why is the choice you make of value to you? What attracts your mind to it? What purpose does it serve? Y'all, it is so easy for someone else to sit in the driver's seat of our lives. And it could be, when we were 8 years old and we were sitting in church and the pastor priest or pope said something from the pulpit. And that is now a value system and a belief system upon which we have lived and guided our entire life. So now today, in our 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, we're making these decisions based off of an 8-year-old's understanding of the world, or interpretation, or whatever the belief system was that was formed then. So now today, to ask these questions of ourselves: why is the choice I am making of value to me? What attracts my mind to it? Guys, even looking at this is why we analyze the intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical intelligences, because we're so integrated. We cannot compartmentalize our lives, even if we try to. Spirituality's on Sundays. Because here's the thing: if you're keeping spirituality to Sunday, you kind of feel guilty for what you're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So if we are allowing the integration of spirituality in every other area of our lives, if we were to take account for our physical bodies, how are we actually feeling? Is that intuition? Is that weird sense in my stomach showing me something deeper than just oh, I don't feel good today? Maybe it's actually my stomach feeling queasy because what's about to happen is not good for me. Or maybe I'm feeling queasy because I know that person is going to lie because they have a history of lying to me and I've never let myself admit it because I love that person. Love can blind us. And so when we start allowing for these different intelligences to have a seat in the boardroom, to act as a board of in our director room, and serve and offer up the data that it has, we suddenly are so much more wise, and we start incrementally scooching our way back into the driver's seat, rather than allowing for that pastor, priest, or pope who had a seat in the a seat at the wheel, or allowing for our boss who sets the definitions of success for us, and we are just blindly following, or our parent who initially said, I think you should be X, Y, or Z in your profession or your career, where really your heart was longing for something else. Y'all, it is so easy to live by default rather than to live awake and to live fully and alive. And it's the incremental choices that we make that gives us just a little bit more control over our lives to create. The goal is that we become creators of our own lives. So going back to this lesson today, y'all, I'm actually going to put these 3 questions in the chat. What a beautiful, beautiful list of questions here. So I'm going to jump here in the chat. Good morning, chat. I'm so glad to be here with you guys. And I'm going to list these questions in the chat because these are so good to ask. Caroline, good morning. Exactly. Integrating spirituality and other aspects of our lives makes us live consciously. I love that. And it's beyond, it's spirituality and being aware of our physical bodies, because guys, our bodies store data. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score, authored by Bessel van der Kolk. And man, this book is so powerful. It actually was really key in helping people understand with understanding trauma and how the body retains these traumatic memories. And it's not just, I think of it as kind of capital T trauma moments. Obviously, that massive car crash, obviously, that death. Those are capital T traumas. But our body even remembers the little t traumas. It's like the slow drip, the death by 1,000 paper cuts. Our body remembers that and it reacts, and it causes us to make decisions unless we understand how our body is working. We understand how the past is showing up today in the present. Yesterday evening, for those who want to go back to the Knowing podcast on YouTube and check it out, we talked about the Knowing framework, the process that I went through to really understand, well, who am I? Who was I created to be? Let me live according to that. Let me live according to my nature versus subconsciously operating underneath and with all these layers that our nurture has assigned to us and put on top of us. Every expectation is a layer. Every environmental teaching, or even just habits that we did as kids, we didn't understand why, that we've taken into adulthood. Every narrative that was spoken over us, all of those add layers. And like Michelangelo said, when he was asked, how did you sculpt David? He said, well, I removed who David was not. And so we have to get back to the integrity of who you and I were created to be. And that is, it fundamentally requires us understanding the intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical intelligences, because each one stores data and each one has something to say and to contribute to our lives. And so in terms of how we can go about doing this, accessing these intelligences, there's a principle that I kind of stumbled upon over the last few years, and I call it vertical alignment. And it is the principle of bringing my mind, body, soul, spirit under and into submission of kind of a hierarchical structure underneath the ideal of, okay, well, who do I want to be? What is my own ideal for me? But under that, it's okay, but then who does God say that I am? Who did he create me to be? Why am I here? So thinking of it in this hierarchical structure, it's okay, now based on who I want to be, based on who God says that I am, now I'm going to bring every part of me, my beliefs, my behaviors, my mindset, the way that I show up in the world, into submission. Because otherwise, if I'm not the one in the driver's seat of my life, I am subconsciously going to be living according to everyone else's opinions, expectations, what they think, how they think I should live. And y'all, everybody else has a lot of opinions over how they think we should live. So that is the concept of vertical alignment. And then we've got the practice of vertical alignment. So that's the principle, the practice. For every principle that we say we espouse or hold to, every value, there needs to be an application. So the principle of vertical alignment looks like, in practice, taking time every single morning, setting aside 30 to 60 minutes where I will go and I will journal, I will work through, and actually I have an acronym for this just to take it all the way into practical application. Vertical alignment, the align practice, ALIGN. A is awakening the physical body. Remember, our body keeps the score. It holds data for us. So if we're carrying something from yesterday or the past, just sitting and being like, how do I physically feel? What's coming up for me? Is there any sensation in my body that maybe I actually like physically actually just feel out of alignment, like my neck hurts. Okay, let me tend to my physical body. And then that's A, awakening the physical body. And then L is listening. Do these sensations that maybe I'm feeling the discomfort, or maybe I feel tightness in my throat, listening to the emotions associated with them, because that's usually how emotions manifest. They're the automatic sensations we feel in our body. But if we're disassociated from our body, we are more than likely disassociated from our emotions, because our body carries and stores emotions. So awakening the body, listening to the emotions. And then I is illuminating the truth, because we don't stay in our emotions. If we were to stay in our emotions, this would be a very dangerous world. And here's the thing, it is in so many ways. That concept of walking on eggshells comes so often from those who have not done the work to understand their emotions. And they don't know why they're angry. They don't know why they're upset. They're having misattributed blame. Just like how in marketing and branding, I have a marketing and branding business, I am always looking for the source. Where did that lead come from? Where did that customer come from? If I'm misattributing where they came from, then I'm going to put a lot more money and a lot more attention into the wrong source. Same thing goes for us on an emotional level. If we don't understand the source of our pain, we are going to be misattributing it and putting all of our attention and blame on somebody else that actually they might have triggered something, but they could only trigger something that was already there. So I need to go to the original genesis. When did that really happen? What really started this emotion and this fear or this pain in me? Yes, they triggered it, but man, it was already there to be triggered. So that's the illuminating the truth. Now, okay, let me actually take a step back. Let me understand what is more true than this temporary emotion that is fleeting, that's not always going to live here. Let's take a step back. Again, who do I want to be? Just because I might have reacted that way, what is more true based on the hierarchical principle structure? Who do I want to be? Who does God say that I am? Who was I created to be in the first place? Y'all, so often we are not living to our own highest potential. But until we get clear on what that is, there is no way we can hold ourselves to any higher of a standard than what other people have told us that we can be. So that's why we actually need this concept of vertical alignment, because it takes us higher than anyone else could have ever said for us. Now, there are sometimes just these wonderful humans who see us and call us to be living bigger and better than we were before. But so often, our standard needs to rise so that we can hold ourselves to toe a better and more worthy line than we were before. So A, awaken our physical body. L, listen to our emotions. And then I, illuminate the truth. What is more true than this present moment? And then G is grow. Now it's time to actually look in the mirror. What are things people have said to us that frankly do hold truth? The other day we had a hard conversation as a family, and are we going to look in the mirror based on what other people are saying to us and concerns or care that they're bringing up? Or are we just completely throwing up our hands and saying, how dare you think anything negative? How dare you have a concern? And are we operating in life as the victim, or are we operating in life taking radical responsibility, looking in the mirror, taking what other people say and examining it and saying, oh, is any part of this true? And weeding through the bias, the subjective, and finding the truth. It's like weeding through to find the gold. And most of the time when somebody has a problem with us, most of the time there's truth there. Even those jokes that sting a little bit, there's truth there. And so are we going to be able to have the humility to look in the mirror and take responsibility to not live as a victim, but to allow for that to help us to hold that high standard? So that's G, that's grow. And then N is navigate. How am I going to navigate the rest of my day given this time that I've taken to tend to myself, to grow, to be intentional? Am I going to be able to maintain this intention throughout the rest of the day? My favorite song lyrics say, I want to live this one wild life. I want to rip it apart. So if we are living with intention, man, we get to experience this visceral life. I rented a car because I just drove to LA, and I'm here for the National Association of Women in Construction event. It's a very long title. And I'm here in LA. And as I was driving, I chose a convertible car because I love taking the top down and experiencing the wind and seeing the stars and being uninhibited in experiencing the drive. It's a 6-hour drive, but it was so much more fun because I was listening to music and a book, and then also having the windows down and the top down. Y'all, this concept of making intentional choices to live life and viscerally engage with it. We only get this one shot that we know of. I think that we do get to have so much more on the other side of this life. But why waste a moment? Why waste a moment? Why not hold ourselves to the highest standard? Why not pay the extra $100 to get the convertible so that we can experience life so much more fully? We're living with a temporary mindset in so many ways where it's like, I just don't think that we hold the honor for our time that we should. Time is precious. Our emotions are precious. Where are we expending our time? Where are we expending our emotions? Where are we expending physical activity and our energy? Because the way that we're expending it shows our value system. So if we're not sure, well, I don't know what my values are. Go take an audit of your calendar. Where do you spend your time? Who do you spend it with? Because that will reflect to you your value system over the values you hold for yourself and the values you hold for others and the values you hold for God. That entirely, like if you want an understanding of that, take an audit of your calendar and who you're hanging out with, how do they treat you? Because again, that will show you your valuation for yourself. I'm going to jump here in the chat. Boladine, good morning, says what matters in our life changes along our time alive. It's so interesting. There's something around the things that matter and the time that's spent in different seasons. So I think that's such a good point, that what we value and the way that we're spending our time, if we were to take that audit of our calendar, it's going to be different per season we're in, what role we're playing. Am I a parent for these 20 years or am I single for these 20 years? We're going to be accountable. And I think we should be accountable for our time. And here's the thing that's so interesting. Are we actually taking an account? Do we think our time is as worthy of, do we honor our time? Do we honor ourselves? Because if we don't fundamentally honor ourselves, we're not going to honor our time or view it as precious. Just scrolling here in the chat. IH Farmer, good morning. The Fawns, Luis, Ethan Moore, good morning. Moo Cool Dog, good morning. Danny in the World TV, good morning. Pickle Pants, good morning. Luis M. Ryan, women in construction must be a small conference. This is my first time. I can only imagine. Although there's a lot of women in construction, the more I've been, and it's like, not just like the construction on the side of the road. It's like design and architect and all of that. My family has a painting business and I'm the 4th generation there, but I also have a branding and marketing business for the trades, where we go in and kind of architect a growth plan for businesses. So we'll see how it goes. Pickle Pants, we program our heads, our brain for whatever we want. Man, yes, what you just said. Pickle Pants, that's so true. We program our mind according to what we want. So if we don't like what we're thinking about, if we're not actually, is your mind a pleasant place to be? That's like such an important thing to consider. Do you like hanging out with yourself? Is your mind a pleasant place to be? I was actually driving and I had a thought about somebody where I was like, I wonder if they intentionally, and then insert blank. And I just realized, I was like, you know what? That was pretty negative. I don't like that thought. But that negative thought came from me. They didn't cause that, because it's so easy to say, well, if they had never done X, Y, or Z, I would have never thought that. Y'all, that thought was there in the first place. A negative thought can only come from a negative place. And so I had to go and excavate and kind of hopefully get rid of that negative place so that I don't have those kinds of thoughts again. Y'all, our mind has so much power. And do we take responsibility for it? Or are we a victim of our own minds? We talk about being a victim to other people, but are we a victim to our own minds where we're not in control of our thoughts? Have we assumed and stepped into the role of responsible advocate over our own ideal, where we're so clear on who we want to be that if we have a thought, we're like, hey, wait a second. No, that's who I want to be. I'm going to go and advocate for my future self and say, that's not who I'm going to be. I'm not going to accept that right now. Y'all, there's a lot of times where we need to do that and take responsibility and step in and take care of ourselves. And a lot of times our thoughts can be a cry for help, asking for tending and asking for care because it needs attention. Our thoughts are the window into the soul. If we are willing to take time to listen, to pay attention, to do the work and dig deeper and say, you know what? That thought does not represent who I want to be. Therefore, I'm going to take it. I'm going to analyze it and say, where did you come from, thought? And you know what? You're actually not, I don't want you to stay here. So if this thought doesn't have deep roots, just get the hell on out of here. Or if you have deep roots, let me actually go to the experience that caused this thought to begin with, this belief system, because our thoughts reflect something that needs to be healed or something that needs to be changed or something that we just let go of, where it's just like, oh, that thought is not who I want to be. No problem. But y'all, if we're not being intentional, I have this fruit fly. I just got him. I just got the fruit fly. There's a fruit fly flying in my face just now. That's so funny. If we're not intentional to ask these questions, where is this thought coming from? Does it need to be healed? Does it represent a belief system? Or do I just need to get rid of it? Because there's kind of these three different options, and I'm sure that there's more. But Pickle Pants, what you said, we program our mind for whatever we want. That's so good. We teach people how to treat us. Jumping back here in the chat, Ekos, good morning. Danny in the world, good morning. Ethan, good morning. Southern Mofu, good morning. Mo Cool Dog. Mo Cool Dog, I'd love to hear what maybe you've gone through and experienced. You know, you made a comment, I don't take advice from 12-year-olds. And I just want to call that out, you know, because I think that, y'all, what we get triggered by was already there. So if you're experiencing a reaction to this stream, I think that it really warrants, if you're willing to do the work and you're willing to not live as a victim and you're willing to take responsibility, what is this conversation causing in you? What is it stirring in you? And a lot of times the things that make us mad are the things that we actually value and that we hold dear to us. So if there's something that's been said, or even me, you know, that you're upset by, man, I would ask why. Again, the thought is the thought I'm having about this woman or this conversation, what is it revealing in me that needs to be healed? What is it revealing in me that needs to maybe be adjusted? Maybe there's an old program, to what Pickle Pants was saying. Is there an old program that you're wiring and orienting your life around that maybe needs to be updated? Or maybe that thought just needs to go. Maybe that's just unkind. Maybe what you're saying is just mean and you get to stop doing that. Those are all viable options. So really, y'all, what we get really annoyed by or really upset by is an opportunity for us to just be quiet, take a step back, and go do the vertical alignment practice. Go actually sit and wonder, why do I value so much only hearing from or talking to people who have really been through the ringer? And I just want to comment on that. I think I may have lost you guys. I just want to comment on that because I know what you mean. There was about 10 years where I just did not want to hear from anybody. Probably not that long. There was probably about 6 years where I just did not want to hear from anybody who had not gone through loss. And I was like, you know what? I don't care what you have to say. If you have not been through loss to devastating degree, I don't want to hear what you've got to say. And I know what you mean. And so to hold that position, it's like, man, I think that that's actually a really beautiful thing, because it usually reflects a lot of pain that we've been through, that now we hold this value of, I only want to talk to people who have been through real pain. And so I just want to honor that reveals something that's really, really important. I'm going to go over here and jump in on YouTube, and continue the conversation there. Ethan Moore says, what it's revealing in me is that I'm not real keen on the ignorance in my environment. Honestly, that is so, I just feel like that's so honest, Ethan. And isn't that such an opportunity to, when we're doing this audit, it's, do I want to be like this? That's why we have to know who we want to be, because then when we audit our lives, we audit the people we're around, the conversations we have, the business that we're in, we compare it with this idea where it's like, oh, oops, I don't actually want to be doing these things, or I actually want to make real change. This is where all of a sudden we start taking over the driver's seat of our life, and we stop operating on autopilot by asking these questions. Thank you so much for saying that. Sammy, Sammy, I'm so glad to see you. God bless you. I really wanted to say hi, but I can't stay long. Y'all, Sammy is a friend of the Knowing Show. He joined us, back in probably January, and he shared how 2 years ago, it was the anniversary of his accident from 2 years prior, and he's now been diagnosed with being a C2 quadriplegic. And Sammy, every time I see your name, my friend, I think of you, and I'm with you. I'm so sorry for what you're going through. And I just know, Sammy, I know that you've got what it takes. I believe in you, my friend. I can't imagine how hard that is. And I believe in you. So we're with you. Danny in the world, thank you. Thank you for being kind. David Clark, good morning. Coin Mister, good morning. Like minds are the key to happiness. Ethan Moore, there is an entire body of philosophy on the ideas you are sort of scratching or gently bumping up against. I'd love to know what that is, and if you have, Ethan, a book that you recommend or someone that you really love. Stephen Randall, good morning. Humans seem to value their ego more than who they really are. I catch myself doing the same thing. Man, that is so, so true. I catch myself doing the same thing too. It's, I ask myself this question: do I want to be right, or do I want to know what is right? Like, do I want to be right, or do I want the truth? And man, that I was talking with my darling about that, because that was really, really important in conversation we were having, where it's like, man, do I just value being right, or do I prioritize and value the truth? And that's huge. Tara Lynn, good morning. Perry Guinness, society made me who I am. Interesting. Terry, I'm curious. You know what, Terry, I'm going to go ahead and put you on timeout. I just saw your next comment, so we don't talk like that. Niga, here's a suggestion for your live stream. Noted. Thank you. Subline, wow. This is honest. Nobody wants to be an alcoholic or a drug addict, just easier to dull feelings with substances. Subline, what you just said reminds me of something that, like, man, I just get so passionate about. We're not taught how to deal with those feelings. We're taught all things intellectual intelligence, but we're not taught emotional intelligence. We're not taught how to deal with the reality of relationships, and not taught how to deal with the reality of feelings, and not taught how to deal with the reality of ourselves. And this is, man, I think this is one of the greatest deficits in our culture across the globe. I think this is a global phenomena in so many ways. It's not just, for me, I live in the US. I don't think it's just in the US. It's cross culture. And some cultures do it better than others. And to that point, You made a comment earlier on society made me who I am. Societies across different cultures will hold different value systems. Some honor family more than others. Some honor, the knowledge of the self and the cultivation of self. We look back over millennia and you think of Socrates and Aristotle and the way that society at that time honored philosophy and free thought and creation. We had the greatest artists over over that span of like 1500 years in so many ways. Like it was just beautiful. And then we had, I was just thinking about this the other day the with the Industrial Revolution and the age of technology that's been coming up. I feel like it's really been suffering in terms of art and philosophy. There hasn't been as much ingenuity. And so just to your point about society made me who I am, the people who made the biggest mark were those who went countercultural. And so if we are willing to look in the mirror and take radical responsibility, we move out of that victim mindset that says, oh, society is dictating who I am. And rather it's, well, let me actually be the one in the driver's seat. Who do I want to be? And not just who do I want to be, but who was I created to be? What are my unique skill sets and giftings? And man, wouldn't it be cool if there was a community for those who are willing to step into the fullness of who they can be and be unique and be countercultural, which is what we're trying to do now. Mr. Gabriel, good morning. Sender V, good morning. I'm glad you're here. Bang Top, good morning. I'm so glad you're here. Brian D, good morning. Brian, I need my glasses, so otherwise I wouldn't be able to see, but I'm glad you're here. John, good morning. All right. Y'all, thank you so much for joining. I'm so grateful for this conversation. It was really, really meaningful. And I really appreciate these conversations, like the comments that people have put here. Yeah, y'all, there's so much for us to learn from each other. Just the comments that I saw and what people are adding to, being creative and being curious and asking questions and offering thoughts. It's just so important that we get to benefit from how other people are thinking and what other people are learning. So I'm really, really grateful for each one of you who joined today. I really love learning from you guys. So thank you so much for joining. Mike, good morning. Don Bruce, good morning. Muhammad, hello. Thank you guys. I will be back on again tomorrow at 9 a.m. Eastern. We will not be playing trivia today since I'm at this event. So this afternoon, actually, you know what? Let me confirm. I don't think I'm going to be going live again today. Sometimes I'll have a podcast, like a branding and marketing podcast that I'll go live with. Okay, I do not. All right, y'all. So I will not be back on again today, but I will be back on tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. And then I have a show tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. So we're going to have 2 shows tomorrow. All right, y'all. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining, and I will see you tomorrow.